Okay, we are live. Welcome to the Focus on Fantasy podcast. We are three fantasy writers and fantasy fans, fantasy romance fans, and we are doing a podcast to talk about all things fantasy romance. I am Al Klaus. I have with me A.R. DeClerc. Say hi.
Hello.
And Paulina Woods.
Hello.
And today we are talking a little bit about genre and a little bit about tropes. And this conversation came about because AR shared a blog post from Twisted Bitches book blog about overused romance themes. And I thought it was really interesting and a good subject for the podcast. Focus on Fantasy Romance, as the title says, is going to talk about fantasy romance, but we're also going to talk about paranormal romance, urban fantasy romance, and sci-fi romance. Basically anything that's speculative fiction romance, I would say. But that doesn't really make for a very catchy sounding podcast. So let's start by defining genre a little bit about how we define romance. Now, RWA does say that romance does require an emotionally satisfying ending, which means a happily ever after and or a happy for now ending. And there seems to be a little confusion about that within current genre trends. Everything that I've written has been definitely romance. But I've read some things that are being sold as romance that aren't. One of the big ones is, and I hate to admit I've read this, 50 Shades of Grey. The first one is not, it's not romance because they don't, this is a spoiler alert, they don't end up together. I mean, what are your opinions on that?
I agree with you about 50 Shades of Grey not being a romance, at least in the beginning, for the same reasons. They do not end up together. The first book, I feel like there's not a satisfying conclusion for the relationship at least in that first book, maybe not even till the end of the series, which I really didn't even get that far, but just from what I've heard. But I think that and several other books along the same lines that could be characterized as erotica versus romance, which are two very different things. Erotica focuses on the physical relationship between the main characters, whereas the romance focuses on the emotional relationship and the story arc emotionally for the main characters. And I feel like 50 Shades falls into the erotic side, at least the first book does. There's not a whole lot of romantic, emotional arc for them in that book, so I would fall more on the erotica side. And I feel like there are a lot of books that have been categorized as romance that focus more on the physical side rather than the emotional side. So for me, that's kind of where I draw the line between is it a romance or is it not a romance. I can even sometimes, on a rare occasion, say a book without a happy for now or a happily ever after is still considered a romance if I feel like there's an emotional arc in that book. But there has to be that emotional side to the story for me to categorize it as romance.
Right, and Paulina?
Okay. Well, I've never read 50 Shades of Grey. Never got around to it. It's not my type of thing. But every book I've ever read usually ends with the couple being together. You know, even if it continues on into the next book, I feel that in the book that you finish, they should be together, not happily for now. It should be happily ever after, which makes romance. Because happily for now to me is more like I can't explain it, but I don't put it as romance. It's just different to me. And I put down books before where I'm like, they're not going to end up together. Why am I going to invest time in reading it? That's kind of my take on it.
Exactly, and if you've got a reader that picks up a book and it's being advertised as a romance, and the hero dies at the end, or they aren't together at the end, the reader is going to be kind of mad, because I read romance because I know at the end, even through all the hardship that the couple endures, they're going to be together. They're going to find their happily ever after, and that's escapism for me. So if I pick up a book that's not a happily ever after, but I was promised a romance, I would be mad, and I can imagine that other readers would feel that way.
I do know of one book in particular where I suspended my need for a happily ever after, and even a happily for now. And my good friend Kate Corsino wrote, it's her Progenitor series, the Progenitor Saga, and book 1 is called Spark Rising. And the, spoiler alert, 2 main characters have agreed that they will be together in this emotional and physical relationship that they have. They work really hard through the whole book to overcome these obstacles and be together. But the plot of the book and the plot of the series actually pulls them apart at the end of book 1 and sends them off in different directions to basically establish a new world order for this dystopian post-apocalyptic world that they live in. Even though they were not physically together at the end of book 1, because I knew they were emotionally engaged in this relationship and determined to be together by the end of the series no matter what and have this world that was better for everyone, I called that romance. And it has a very slow burn romance, and it was not fast. It was not insta-love. It was not insta-lust. It was none of those things. It was very well crafted that they fell in love over the story arc of the first book. They are not together at the end of book 1. I can actually tell you because I read for her. They are, spoiler alert, not together at the end of book 2. But I still would call the whole series a romance. Even though it falls more on the dystopian or urban fiction scale, I think romance readers would still enjoy it.
Wouldn't that be more of a like a, you know, post-apocalypse with elements of romance than advertising it as a romance?
She does not advertise it as a romance for that reason. She doesn't want to lead people to believe that there's a happily ever after at the end. I just think that romance readers wouldn't be disappointed if they picked it up thinking it was a romance. She doesn't market it that way because it's just to false. But as a romance reader with certain expectations, I don't think romance readers would be upset by the way she builds up the romance. I mean, because the emotional elements are there. It's just missing the parts, the fact that they're actually physically together for a lot of it. So, yeah, she markets more dystopian or urban fiction, but I don't think romance readers would be disappointed. It's one of the few books that's like that that I actually would suggest for romance readers, though.
Okay, and you brought up that it's not insta-love, which we can actually segue right into our tropes, because one of, at least with paranormal romance, one of the big driving tropes is fated mates or love at first sight. And one of the that's a trope that I've actually read quite a bit, and I try to avoid, because I write, my Stealing the Wolf Prince is a werewolf romance novel, and I really wanted to avoid using that as a plot device to get my couple together. I didn't want them to have the, oh, well, she's my mate, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, we're going to be together. I wanted there to be an emotional growth. And but that's a very common trope within at least paranormal romance, is the fated mates. And some of the other ones that are really, really popular right now, and back to that overused trope article that you had posted, one of them that needs to kind of lose popularity was Step Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I've not read any, and I don't understand it because it doesn't appeal to me. What are some other, like Billionaires? Those are kind of, I'm over those. I don't understand motorcycle ones. Of course, writing fantasy romance, there's no motorcycles.
If I can interrupt,
Yeah.
the one that I find kind of not really well, I find it annoying and it turns me off right away. Is you were talking about insta love? Is the alpha insta love where your mind, you have no say so. This is what's going to happen, and the girl kind of falls in line. And I go, wait, but one of my favorite authors, Christian Feehan, she wrote a book, and literally the girl was kick ass in the beginning. I'm like, oh my god, I was like, she's perfect. Halfway through, she met her mate, and all of a sudden now she couldn't do anything by herself. He was like, oh, well, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to act. This is how you're going to act. And all of a sudden, I was sitting there reading, and I didn't even finish the book. I was like, wait, but she's, in the beginning, she could take care of herself. And now, because this guy came along, and this is her fated mate, she can no longer make decisions by herself. And I see that a lot, like a lot of authors are starting to follow that kind of, the girl becomes weak, which I think in a partnership, neither one of them should become weak. Even in a dom-submissive relationship, they still both they bring their strength and weaknesses and finish each other off. Not one is subservient to the other. And that seems to be kind of like the big play right now is I'm alpha, and you see in a lot of teasers, you're mine, I wanted you, I'm going to make you mine, this is the way it's going to be. They're kind of like, I'm over it. If I see that in a teaser, if I see that on the back of a book, I'm like, okay, I'll skip over it for now.
Right. I have a hard time with that as well, where you've got, at the beginning of the book, you've got a very independent woman. She can take care of her own self. And then she gets browbeaten by this guy who says, well, no, it's going to be my way. I'm going to be high-handed. You can't make decisions for yourself. And then at the end, she's complacent. And I'm like, no, that's the key for an abusive relationship. She's got to be herself still. I mean,
and honestly, if that was me, he would probably be buried in my backyard somewhere, and I'd be like, well, now I can live my life my way, and you'll be fertilizer.
It's just... Don't say anything that's going to get yourself in trouble.
Hey, I'm okay. My boyfriend lets me be the dominant female that I am, so I don't have to worry about it. But I'm like, I look at these sometimes, and I'm like, how, especially, let's say they're a shifter, and most shifters, females are very, they're dominant, even because they take on their animal characteristics. How do you become subservient? How do you put down your animal nature to become this house cat?
Actually, Nalini Singh is one of the best authors who addresses the dominant-submissive relationship in a shifter pack. She actually very well outlines the role of the submissive mate inside of the wolf, the whatever bear, whatever pack it is that she's talking about. And she actually has shown that every role that is within the pack, whether it be a dominant role or a submissive role, they have important jobs to do, and they provide important focus for the pack, and they each do separate things to ensure the health and safety of the pack. So the world that she built for her shifter groups actually gives equal footing to dominants and submissives, and usually it's the submissive, the maternals is what they call them, within the pack that have the most say over what goes on. The dominants may do the fighting, they may do the protecting. The maternals are the ones who basically rule the roost and make sure that everything runs smoothly and everyone does what they're supposed to do. So if you ever want to read what a well thought out dominant submissive line is, then you should definitely read her Side Changeling series, because she perfectly executes that. Yes, you may have a dominant personality. Yes, I may be a submissive, but that doesn't make me submissive to you necessarily. It just means different personality traits. So if you ever want to read a good fantasy romance series like that has really good pack hierarchy, then you should definitely try that one.
As long as there's no stepbrothers, we're good then.
No stepbrothers, a few billionaires. No stepbrothers.
Okay, how is it that there's so many billionaires in the world in books, and they meet all these mousy women, librarians? Where's my billionaire? Because apparently, according to these books, I should have found mine already.
These are
That's another
fiction.
thing that drives me nuts about that trope. I'm like, seriously? Where are all these rich men who don't have to ever work in their life? Like, am I making them money so they can run off with the secretary? Like, can I be the secretary?
I'm pretty sure that's a trope.
Well, I was just thinking maybe I'm in the wrong city. I don't know. I need to go where the billionaires are.
I actually had the Insta-Love, and as authors, you know, sometimes you are writing this story and then you start to second-guess yourself and say, you know, is this Insta-Love or have I given this enough emotional background, blah, blah, blah. So I took it to my beta reader, who's fabulous, by the way, and I said, tell me, you know, do they fall in love too quickly? Because they know each other literally 6 days and she is ready to jump his bones. But my character was raised in a pagan household. She's a witch. She understands sexuality. She understands the ties between sexuality and nature and magic and all these things. And she was always raised to believe that, you know, if there's someone that you desire and they desire you too, that there's nothing wrong with having sex with this person. If
But
you know.
But
And
Insta love isn't sex. Like, I think characters who have sex early in the book, I'm okay with it. Insta love is like them saying, I love you within 5-6 pages.
right, and both my characters are confused by this instant attraction that they have, and they're like, oh, could this possibly mean something more? But then they're like, we just really want to feel good, so let's do this, and then we'll worry about it later. And, I mean, yes, it does turn into, you know, something emotional later on, but I was worried that readers would be confused and think that just because they were together early, that it was an insta-love scenario. But my beta said she thought it was okay that they knew each other 6 days and felt like they needed to have sex. So I said, okay. I
Okay,
didn't want to
so
change anything.
what about what is it, May, December? What is that one called?
Yeah, a May December romance is where one of the
It's older.
right,
And
and by a significant amount.
And it seems to be a big thing now. And I know we were talking about this earlier about the fact that the teasers are getting kind of
Ridiculous.
A little bit raunchy sometimes.
when you see either the one, not mentioning authors' names, but the ones where the baby shoes and the combat boots, or the boy who is like 12 and he's holding a baby and it says, "I loved you from the moment I held you in my arms." I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, but if I had an 11-year-old boy and he went to someone's house and said that, I would smack him upside the head and get him help. Like, how is that okay? How do parents read that and think it's cute? And I understand that they won't get together till the girl's of age, but still, how, you know, I can't wrap my mind around it. How do you read a book where the characters start out falling in love, or whatever you want to call it, when she's a toddler?
Yeah, that doesn't seem right to me either. It seems a little creepy. And how does an 11-year-old boy know what love is, and especially when he's looking at a baby? That's not...
I see protective. I see if he's protective of her. But again, it's your best friend's sister. You don't feel that way. I have best friends, and I seen their siblings grow up. I didn't have feelings for them. I didn't want to protect. I didn't want them around. So how is it that these boys are falling in love, or, you know, growing up to want these girls? Oh, I've wanted you since you were what? I'd be like, sir, so when you were 15 and I was 7, you were still looking at me? How does this work?
Yeah,
Right.
that's pedophilia. That's not insta-love. But the thing is, I think it's different if they're both adults and then he's like, oh, I went off to college and you were a 14-year-old with braces and freckles, and I come back from college and now you're 20 and you're this beautiful grown-up girl and I'm attracted to you now. I think that's different than I've loved you since you were a toddler.
And I'm in one. I'm literally, he's 43 and I'm 33 or whatever. Like, we're in one, and I'm okay with it. Like you said, as long as it's you know, it's not, don't advertise it as pedophile-ish. And I think that's another trope that's starting to kind of gain ground for some odd reason.
I think that's rather marketing. I don't think they thought that through when they were marketing it, really.
No, but people are reading, but people are, like, the comments under it is, I can't wait to read this, this is amazing, oh my god, and I'm just thinking, I hope none of you guys have kids or grandkids.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think that's more creepy than enticing for me as a reader. I would scroll right past that. I also scroll right past the naked people. I scroll right past the F word that is on the page 9 times in giant bright letters. I scroll right past that because I really don't want to know all of your dirty words in your book. Cool if you have dirty words. I mean, we all read dirty words. You know, the scenes can be pretty steamy, and that's cool. On your teasers, like, you don't need to have, like, the most dirty, erotic thing you can think of as your teaser. I mean, yeah, for some people, that's going to be teasing. For me, I want to know more than the fact that you know the F word or the names for vagina and penis. Like, I want to know more than that. I want to know if you're a better writer than that. I mean, that's my
I want to know if they can write something sensual without being crass.
Right.
So if you can't write something sensual without using euphemisms for penises and vaginas, then...
And not say moist.
Better?
Oh my God, don't say moist. I'm sorry.
Well, we could go into a whole episode about
flower.
Yeah, bad thesaurus use, but you know, there's some really great articles out there about really bad use of euphemisms for certain things, but
her moist flower. What the? Oh!
Her love tunnel. I mean, 50 Shades. You know, and it does. And
love tunnel.
They get razzed a lot, like Goodreads and Reddit and other things. You know, when you write stuff like that, and I'm not being snobby as an author. I'm being snobby as a reader. Sometimes if I'm laughing in the middle of your sex scene because you've called something, really crazy out of the blue, then that's really not holding me in the moment. Unless it's funny. I sometimes do a little humor in my sex scenes where, they hit their heads or fall off the bed or, the things that happen to most of us. But if I'm not trying for hilarious, I really don't want my reader, laughing at my words as I'm...
That brings me to a trope that they have in sex scenes. The part where the guy commands the girl to come, and she does. And I'm just like... I'm sorry, if my boyfriend does that, I'll just look at him and be like, "Are you kidding me? What? How does this work? Are we running on batteries? Are we? You can't. I mean, I know that some people have control of that, but these are people who are this is the first time they're having sex, and he's just like, "All right, you're gonna come for me now," and she's like, "I'm broke, I'm going." I'm just like, "What are you doing?" And it's just, to me, I think that is one of the funniest. I just start laughing and like. Well, if he tells you to sit, I guess you're going to sit too.
I just had the best idea ever. If you had that scene, and then at the moment that he did that, she found out she was actually a sex robot, not a real girl, that would be hilarious. It's like, oh, I'm not even a real girl. Here I was, Pinocchio,
Oh, no. Pinocchio was a child. No.
But I'm just saying, Pinocchio was a sex bot. I don't know, but... It's like, oh, ding, ding, ding. Real people can't do this. I must not be human. I don't know.
The Stanford Wives.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where they got it from.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't really, I've read some high heat stuff, and a lot of times your first encounter with a partner is kind of awkward because you're not used to each other and what people like and don't like. So it's really... I understand that the scene needs to catch the reader's eye and be compelling and whatnot, but I don't mind a little bit of awkwardness in their first encounter because, sex is not always graceful and you don't always climax together and, you've got a guy that's like, oh yeah, come for me, and you're like, I'm not there yet, keep going.
It's like, that train left the station 5 minutes ago, where were you?
I'm done.
Or another one is, I don't know, maybe a sex worker, how many, they go at it, and then, an hour later, they're ready to go again, and then later that night, they're like, let's do it again. I'm like, excuse me? No, I have a shotgun by my bed. Like, how do you do that? And especially in gay romance, I've noticed, I read a lot of it, and I'm like, there's no way, I'm sorry. There's no way that these guys are getting it back up and going again. I'm like, can you eat dinner first? Or, I don't know, do something. Like, I just finished reading one now. They, in the first 4 chapters, I think they did it 3 times. And I'm just like, maybe you're Superman.
No, I can't.
Heal really fast.
There are
That's
some
another
paranormal romances where one of the partners is actually some type of supernatural creature, where that might be their superpower or something. Like Renee Mason's Symphony of Light and Winter. Cyril, the main hero, was actually built for sex, so his endurance totally makes sense. It's within the confines of the universe that she built. But yeah, I've read books where they're not teenagers, so they're not 100% driven by hormones, and I'm like, how are you not dry humping? I mean,
but okay, in that case, let's say that the girl is human and the guy is werewolf, whatever, and they have stamina. The girl still can't keep up. And I think that sometimes authors forget that, and they just think, oh, how much sex can I put into a book? And I'm like, well, how about you take out 5 of those sex scenes and put in more meat? I don't mind reading more meat and knowing that they're going to have sex and working up to it than just throwing as much sex as you can into a book just because he's a werewolf and he can. That's nice that he can, but afterwards she's going to push out some cubs too? What are we doing here? You know, like, it's just, I don't know. To me, I think sex has become, it's just too much. It just become too much. Like, readers are expecting, one of my old beta readers, she was like, well, you don't have enough sex in your books. I'm just like, but what? She's like, yeah, I'm used to reading like 4 scenes of sex in a book. I'm like, wow, okay. My books are only
right.
100 and something
my
pages.
characters only ever do it once. That's usually, maybe twice. My characters usually do it once, maybe twice. And the rest of the time is either the build-up to or the after. But, I mean, I kind of write adventure romance, so I focus a lot on the plot, too. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the getting it on. But, I mean, I try to make it so that they do have that one, you know, moment where they can be together or whatever, and give the reader that understanding that, yeah, they physically mesh, you know. But other than that, I don't usually try to overdo with the sex either, but I do know what you're talking about when you say sometimes it seems like you lose the story and all you have is a bunch of sex scenes tied together one after the other. That I've read a few like that too. And I just thought this could be so good, but there's just not enough plot here because the reader took, you know, 50 pages for sex.
Because the author either having sex or they're cleaning up the sex act. You got one of the two. I'm like, so what else happens in this book? It's just, I don't know. So, I mean, I've kind of started not skipping over. If it gets to be 3 sex scenes, I'll just skip over the rest of them. Just kind of go, okay, now let's get back to the meat of the book.
Like, I'm fine with a sex scene actually propelling the plot forward. Like, if it shows that they're growing as individuals or it's required for a further plot element, that's fine. But I think if the author, or like if I'm reading something and they're just having sex for the sake of having sex, I'm like, can we move to the plot, please? Let's go. You know?
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about aliens. I love aliens. But, and I'm telling, I love aliens, and I'll mention one on here. But my whole thing is all of a sudden everybody's doing aliens, and they're all like blue, green, whatever. But it seems like it's becoming flooded with alien books, and they're not building their worlds. All it is, hey, look, here's an alien. Hey, look, here's a human. They're together, and you're like, yeah, but how do they trade? What are they doing out there? You know, and I think that that's one of them that's going to become, unfortunately, overused soon, just because people see that they're selling.
In the same way that the alpha male werewolf motorcycle gang you know,
Billionaire.
bomb scenario is going on, so is the alien mate comes to Earth and takes you aboard his spaceship to be his alien bride. That to me is an overdone trope as well. It's just one of those things that when you say sci-fi romance, people tend to go in that direction. They either think one of two things. They think tentacles and, you know, green skin and lots of eyes, or they think alien dude looking for bride, you know. So it's one of those things that's kind of a long-standing trope for SFR, but I was hoping we would pull more away from that and get to the world building, the plot, all the things that make science fiction great.
They forget to build the world.
Right.
So you end up going, okay, they're on a spaceship. What does it look like? You can't just tell me a spaceship, because to me, I mean, is it big? Is it small? Are there like dormitories plus like food court? Or do they all have to cook their own food? I'm like, come on, tell me what's going on here. Where do they come from? What does their planet look like? It's just like, oh, lake, yay, they're having sex. I'm like, yay.
Do they have artificial gravity?
Yeah, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Or, oh my God, another one is Lucifer. I think because that show came out, everyone's doing Lucifer too. Like, Lucifer's daughter, or Lucifer comes out of hell. Lucifer. I'm like, oh God. Can someone just do, I don't know, Lucifer's lieutenant? Ooh. All right, Lucifer's lieutenant.
Go for it.
I should, just because the fact I went on Amazon and I looked up, you know, I was like, oh, I'm interested. Oh my God. How many Lucifer books come out? Like in one day, I think there's like almost 500. It's weird.
I think the anti-hero trope is a big one. If it hasn't hit yet, it's going to pretty soon. I think people like that villain has the gold, or you know, villain has a soft spot for his lady. People like that. I mean, I like that. That's one of my favorite tropes. I love bad boy with a heart of gold. I love to redeem the villain and turn him into a good guy. That's probably my favorite one ever. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I think that that's going to be pretty popular if it's not really sensationally popular now. It's coming down the pike.
Can we do it? Can we do it with Scottish men? I love a Highlander bad boy redeem.
Scottish Laird and his time-traveling woman.
No, I don't mind time traveling, but if they do Scottish, it has to be like, do some research, you know? And I love a good Scottish bad boy. I'm going to you know, I'm going to save my clan. I'm just like, take me home. I'll go. I'll save your clan with you. But like, I've seen some bad ones, but yeah, I love the bad boy redeemed. As long as they're Scottish.
Yeah, Bad Boy Redeemed is my favorite. My favorite book ever is that trope. So I think, I don't know, I don't usually do a whole lot of Bad Boy Redeemed. My bad boys usually die. But I do like reading that, and I like it when they do it well, and I really, really hate him, and I think he's nasty and terrible, and then they show me slowly over the course of the book some things that he may not be good, you know, and I don't always want him to be good or secretly good. He can still be bad and still be a real giant a-hole, but you know, he's got to have some redeeming qualities that make me think, okay, he's not a complete waste of space. And it takes really hard work for an author to do that well, to write that turnaround, I think, for somebody that they've made really awful, and then to make your reader actually love them in the end. And I think that takes masterful work, and I'm still trying to work on that, but I'll get it. I'm going to turn an a-hole into a butterfly at some point.
On that note, how about shy boys? I know we're talking about overused ones, but I don't think there's enough of them. Like, where the guy is not so much insecure, just kind of shy, and you have to work him out of his shell.
They call those beta male romances instead of alpha male.
Yes. Finding My Highlander, I think it's called, by Jesse Cage, is the perfect one. He's like this strong guy. He's confident in his work. But when it comes to women, he was made fun of as a child. Not a child, as a teen. Someone told him, oh, my God, you're too big. You'll never fit inside a woman. And so he's never had sex because he's lived with that since he was 18, and some lady laughed at him. And so then a lady comes back, you know, from the future or whatever, and they fall in love, and she shows him that it's not, but it's watching his insecurity as he grows into a stronger man. To me, I was just like, that's hot. Because he wasn't that alpha male, but he also wasn't omega. He was just kind of like, you know, he had the same insecurities that a female would have, and with her help, he overcame them. That's what I want to see more of. I think that would be amazing. I have trouble writing those type of guys, so I have to depend on other people to write them. You too.
I love the book where the female is not perfect in any way, shape, or form. Actually, she might be ugly or have some kind of, you know, not disfigurement, but some reason that she feels like she's not worthy, blah, 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 not chased by all the guys. And I know that there's a lot of books like that, but if you read Lord of the Abyss by Nalini Singh, it's actually like Beauty and the Beast reversed. Like, she's really hideous. I mean, the way they describe her, she's not a very attractive woman, but he falls in love with her because of her personality, because he doesn't have time in his life for somebody who's flirtatious or, you know, wasteful of their time and energy, and he's really, you know, intrigued by the fact that she seems really strong and independent, and he doesn't really care what she looks like, and I absolutely love that. I wish more people would write that. More people would write about that kind of relationship where it's not always about, oh, I'm instantly attracted to this person because she has big boobs and long legs, and or this about her or that about her, you know.
How about, well, on the subject of the lady being not pretty, how about the BBW trend that's kind of sweeping the world?
Trend, all right. That's bad.
Well, for anyone that doesn't know, because we don't have anyone viewing, but we will have people later, BBW is Big Beautiful Woman. And I'm fine with that trope because I'm not a skinny woman. I've never been, I never will be, even if I hit my goal weight. But I don't like the fact that most of the females in that genre or in that trope view it as a flaw. Like, I'd really love to see a BBW who totally embraces the way that she is. Like, that's not her flaw. Like, your characters need flaws. I mean, they need to overcome something in the book in order for them to grow as a character, but I don't want it to be the fact that they feel that they're inadequate due to their size, because size doesn't matter. I read a book, and I'll leave the name out of it, but I read a book where a woman desperately wanted to lose weight, and she met this guy, and they had this huge adventure together, and she had lost weight at the beginning, and then at the end she didn't show any growth. She didn't show that she was happy with the way that she was. I can't really give too many details away without kind of giving away the book, but I'm like, okay, so she was big, and then she lost a bunch of weight, and then had this huge adventure, and she gained a little bit of weight back, but she never once during the entire book said, hey, I love the way that I am now. And I didn't like that, because she didn't show any growth. She lost the weight, so she's a shallow person. I didn't see any growth, and I thought, you know, she should have put on a few pounds and been, hey, you know, I'm perfect the way that I am. I was perfect the way I was. I'm perfect the way I am now, and no one else gets to judge me.
I agree with that.
Some of the guys seem more fetish bound too, though, in those books. When you read them, they fall in love with the girl, and oh, I like my women big, and they don't fall in love with the lady's mind. They fall in love with the body.
Right.
If that makes sense. And so I mean, as a big woman, I love dating. Well, now I'm stuck in a relationship. I'm not stuck. I love the guy. But when I was dating, one of the things that turned me off, and one of the things that turns me off in books, is when the guy says, oh, I love me a big woman. I'm like, that's nice. Well, then go get you I mean, just because you like a big woman, I don't walk up and say, I like a guy with a big penis, whip down your pants and let me see it. You know, so to like someone because of, I like a woman who's really big, to me, to me, it's a fetish. So if I lose weight, are you gonna fall out? Are you gonna stop liking me? If I gain weight, are you gonna be? I mean, what are we doing here? So I've noticed that a lot of them, the women are very. I mean, the men are very fetishized. Like it's like a fetish to them instead of a love.
Right. My current book that I'm working on right now, I tried really hard to make my female main character. She loves herself. She absolutely does not give a damn what anybody else thinks. She has had lots of men in love with her. She has had lots of relationships. She's perfectly okay with that. She knows she's awesome, and she does not worry about it. The only thing she knows is she like admits to everyone that her flaw is she doesn't think before she acts, and she knows it, and she embraces that, and she says sometimes I don't do this, but when it comes to the way she looks, she's cool with it, and that's the way I wish everybody was, and it's not easy. Like I'm not that way with myself, but I wanted my readers to say, oh, this is a woman who is perfectly fine with the way she is. She doesn't think she has to change her physical appearance. She doesn't think that she has to mold herself into what this man wants her to be. Like, she knows she has flaws. She knows she has character flaws and things she needs to work on. But other than that, she just thinks she's cool. And she does it without being snobby or stuck up. Or she's just like, I'm a great person. And I hate when the female character is so concerned and so worried about how everyone else sees her and then there's no growth, like you said, to the end of the book, where she never gets over that. It's still a problem. Her man makes the fact that he chose her makes her feel all better. Like, there's no personal growth. It's just what she feels as an extension of, now I'm in a relationship, so I must be good. That kind of turns me off sometimes, because I feel like, okay, so if he leaves you tomorrow, you're going to be a broken mess, and you've not changed at all as a person as a result of this book. So,
Right.
Sometimes I feel like there's that loss of characterization.
I agree. I think if the heroine's only goal for the whole book is to get into a relationship, then it's not, the story itself isn't strong enough. Like, she needs other goals, and the relationship works its way through. Because, as women, we're told that our role is to get married and have children, and that is not right. So I don't like reading fiction that reinforces that lie. I did choose to get married, and I chose to have children, and that's my path, and that's fine for me. And if every woman doesn't want to get married, doesn't want to have kids, that's her path, and that's fine. And we shouldn't be, what's the word I'm looking for? Indoctrinated that we have to have a man to be whole. So yeah, I agree that I don't like stories where the whole purpose of the book is for the woman to find a mate.
Right, she feels validated because now all of a sudden someone loves me enough to be in a committed relationship with me. That's not saying anything about that character's arc. If she started out insecure and ends up insecure, that doesn't really mean that she's changed or that anything happened to her in the course of the book. So to me it seems worthless to read that story. Yes, now they're in a relationship, but it's not going to last that long if she's constantly insecure about whether or not he's going to leave her, or all of those things that, that will come later. You can just imagine, what the next 5 years, if written into a book, would be like for this couple. So, yeah, I kind of lose my get up and go when I start reading books that are like that.
Right. So we are approaching the top of the hour. I know Paulina has to leave soon. And my children are not following direction. So I think we should wrap it up. Next week we do have an interview, and we will be interviewing Paulina. And then after that we will be doing a book chat. We still have to determine which book we are going to chat about. But for anybody that watches this, AR, why don't you go first? Just tell us where we can find more information about you, like your website.
You can check me out on my blog. It's www.ardclerk.com, and that's DECLERCK.com.
And Paulina, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on my blog. It's my first name, www.paulinawoods.com. And basically, you have a man behind you.
I know.
And or you can find me on Facebook. Just search under my name, Paulina Woods. You'll find me.
Okay. And again, I am Elle Klaus. You can find me on my website, which is elleklaus.com, ELLECLOUSE. And we will be back next week with the interview, and that's all I've got. So have a nice night, everybody.
Good night.